The regularly scheduled televised council meeting for Bridgewater Town Council to order. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, we will deem the agenda approved and go down to announcements. Any announcements from members of council? Any events coming up? Nothing? No? I knew Councilor Thorburn
You
had
knew I'd
something.
have a few.
Yeah, I knew it.
Anyway, I just wanted to make the residents of Lunenburg County aware that Veterans Week starts November the 5th to the 12th. Full day planned for November 11th with Remembrance Day service. And Poppy Just Plays will start on Friday, October the 26th. So you purchase your poppies and help the branch. November the 9th, Military Appreciation Night at LCLC, a Lumberjacks game. Special open ceremonies and discounted price for military veterans in uniform and Legion members. And on November 10th, 2 p.m., Des Burzet Museum, 130 Jubilee Road, is please join the museum staff and Dan Hennessy present a video, Time to Remember. And this is a video of veterans who've since passed. Music by the Bridgewater Fire Department Band Quartet, and light refreshments will be served.
Nice. Great. Anyone else? Just remind people that the Tim Hicks concert is next Saturday at the LCLC. There are still some tickets left, but it is selling well, so I would advise anyone who's interested in going to that concert to get their tickets. And again, that's Saturday, November 3rd, and I don't know what time it starts, but it's an evening concert, so I'm sure your ticket will say. Anything else? No? Then I guess we have to acknowledge that this is our CAO's last televised council meeting. And I know you're going to miss it, and I know you had a lot of fun. As frustrating as we are as a group, I'm sure. But I'd just like to say on behalf of the staff, on behalf of council, on behalf of the town, I'd like to thank you for your short but very productive time in Bridgewater. We accomplished a lot. It was enjoyable. It was fun. I hope you had fun while you were here. We're glad you're not leaving us for another council, so we know that we just ruined it for everyone else because you couldn't do better than the town of Bridgewater. We know that. But just on behalf of the community and especially of town council, I want to thank you for your leadership over the last year, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a speech? Did you want to say? We can give you. You have 8 minutes before the delegation's supposed to start. Did you want to just? There you go. No.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm going to miss you. All right. Let's go down to presentations. We have some achievement awards, and if Deputy Mayor Tanner would like to.
Sure. Is
read
Catherine
those.
Talbot here? I see her up there. Come on down, Catherine. Catherine is actually being honored for two sports this evening. Catherine and her partner Lorena Shen won gold in under-17 girls doubles at the 2018 Badminton Nova Scotia Provincial Championships held in April. Catherine was also a member of Badminton Nova Scotia's Provincial High Performance Team for the 4th year and represented Nova Scotia at numerous Atlantic Series events, including the 2018 Atlantic Badminton Championships, where she competed as part of Team Nova Scotia's under-17 team, who won the Under-17 Atlantic Championship team event held in Moncton, New Brunswick in May. Catherine also won a silver medal in Under-17 girls doubles with partner Lorena Shen and a bronze medal in Under-17 mixed doubles with partner Jacob Lorfis, at the 2018 Atlantic Badminton Championships. She's also getting an award tonight for volleyball. Catherine was also a member of the Under-15 Bridgewater Chill volleyball team, who won a silver medal at the 2018 Volleyball Nova Scotia Provincial Championships held in April, where Catherine was named to the Provincial Tier 1 All-Star Team. The medals she received tonight are inscribed as 2018 Badminton Nova Scotia Provincial Under-17 Girls Doubles Gold and 2018 Badminton Nova Scotia Provincial High Performance Team, as well as 2018 Volleyball Nova Scotia Provincial Under-15 Tier 1 All-Star Team. Congratulations, Catherine.
Yeah,
There
congratulations.
you go.
Excellent. We'll go down to our next item, which is our delegation, I believe, is here. We're a little early, but Louise is here. If you'd like to come to the podium, please, and walk us through working together to build healthy communities.
Yep. Too short for podiums. Is it on or?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Alright. I'm gonna put my timer on because I tend to ramble a little because I'm passionate about the topic I'm here to talk to you about tonight, which is really bringing you up to date on what public health is working on, especially since the Nova Scotia Health Authority has gone through some significant transition and changes over the past couple years. So we want to make sure that our municipal units are aware of the work that's going on with public health locally, because we're engaged in a lot of work. So I know some of you from various committees that I sit on in supporting the town of Bridgewater, and others I've met through various venues. So I'm glad to and happy to be here to speak to you as a council about my role and some of the work that we're doing here on the South Shore. I have to do this. All right. So first I wanted to take a moment just to bring some clarity around what public health is all about, and how it differs from many of our other colleagues who work in the health system, and sort of what our role is within the Nova Scotia Health Authority and health system. So our mission within public health is to work with others to understand the health of our community, and we act together to improve health. So a lot of what we do is focused on data collection, data interpretation, consultation, understanding the community and context within which we work and live on the South Shore and in Nova Scotia. And also interpreting that data and translating it so that it's meaningful for the partners, stakeholders, and communities with which we work. Because oftentimes we have access to a lot of information, but we present it in a way that's meaningful for the audiences with which we work. It's just data. So bringing it down and making it user-friendly for those that we work with. So, and then once we've identified some of the priorities within our local communities, we work in partnership with others to improve health. So we don't work in isolation. So you'll find us sitting on numerous committees, involved with a lot of partners, because again, we understand that the issues that we're dealing with are very complex, so we can't address them as a health system or a public health program alone. So we also differ from other healthcare professionals because the work we do within public health, we focus on population. So within the health system, typically we have clinicians, health professionals working with individuals at normally an individual treatment level, whereas in public health, we look at how we can have an impact on our broader populations. So that's why you'll hear us talk about things like population health versus sort of the factors that individually impact our health. So I just wanted to highlight a couple slides that'll sort of help articulate how in public health we frame our work. So I'm sure many of you have probably either seen this slide or something similar, but we really work in the area of social determinants of health. So these are often the factors that are influencing our overall health. And if you look at the breakdown of percentages, you'll see that there's 25% that through a lot of evidence and research, we've identified that our health system, our health care, things like wait times, doctor shortages, those types of things, do impact our health outcomes, but typically it's about 25% if you put health in the context of 100%. Outside of healthcare and outside of our biology, which we don't have a whole lot of influence on, the other 60% is really factors that are within our social and physical environment that we have some influence over, but they're broader than individual behaviors and practices. So things like our education levels, what race or ethnicity we belong to, our early childhood development supports, access to affordable, safe housing. So these things that are really sometimes out of our control as individuals, but as a society, as systems, we can help to influence to ensure that the people in our community are achieving positive health outcomes. This slide, really, it's just a quick slide because a lot of times you'll hear in public health us refer to working around health equity. And we like to clarify the difference between equity and equality, because oftentimes we've set our systems up in our communities, in our governments, in our organizations to look at equality. So how do we make sure that we're treating everybody in our community the same, so that they have the same level of access, oftentimes access to services and programs? But really what we're looking at is we want to see everybody be able to achieve the same level of health outcome within public health. So oftentimes there are various populations within our communities that will need a little bit of extra support, resources. We may need to remove certain barriers so that in the end we can all achieve the same health outcome. So that's where we're focused, is achieving the same health outcome. So what do we need to do to support everyone to be able to do that? So we really look at equity. So now just a little bit about public health and the system, because we have shuffled around a little bit. So really public health, we are part of the Nova Scotia Health Authority, and we are just sort of a small segment. We do our work based primarily in a zone structure. So in public health, we are part of the Western Zone, so it's the South Shore, Southwest, and Western Zone. So our management and senior leadership are at sort of that zone level. But then within our zone, we do have 3 program areas, which we have staff at all in all 3 areas along the South Shore. So you may be familiar. So these are the various programs or areas within public health services, and the first 2 you're probably a bit more familiar with. Our early years program, if you've ever had a baby, raised families, it's really focused on the early years, so the continuum of service for our early years population. So oftentimes where there's prenatal screenings, there's breastfeeding support, we have an enhanced home visiting program where families who are identified needing a little extra support in the home after babies arrive, public health staff will go into the homes and provide additional support. So really it's about getting families and children off to the best start during that early year period. Our health protection team is made up of nurses and LPNs, and this is really, again, you're probably familiar with this, they're responsible for delivering the provincial vaccination programs, immunizations in the schools, and are also responsible for tracking notifiable diseases, because we have a list in Nova Scotia of illnesses and diseases that we're required to notify by law. So measles, mumps, Lyme disease, any sort of outbreak, and will be part of any sort of outbreak management. And then the Healthy Community Team is the third team, which I belong to, and a couple of my colleagues are here. So within our Healthy Communities teams, we have health promoters. So that's myself, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But we also have dental hygienists who support our team. So I have a colleague here this evening. So in school, we have a fluoride reference program, and we're looking at things like water fluoridation policies. So that piece, we also have nutritionists on our team. So some of you may have heard of the School Health Food Project that's happening on the South Shore. So those staff are engaged in sort of those projects, looking at healthy eating environments in our communities. We have a school health promoter who's here this evening too, who really supports our school health environments, so within the schools, and health promoting schools initiatives. So looking at how we create healthy supportive environments within the school systems. So that's our team. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the tangible examples that health promoters are working on here, so you get a little bit of a context of sort of where we're working. So these 4 areas that I've put in the slide here are sort of the pillars that help us guide where we focus our attention. So as a health promoter, one of my responsibilities is around assessing and understanding our communities. So we do a lot around supporting things like community consultations, needs assessments. One that's recently been done in support of South Shore Housing Action Coalition was a housing needs assessment on the South Shore, which a colleague of mine, Nancy Green, I believe has been to council to present on those results. So a big part of what we do is help to dig through the data and understand the health status of our communities. We do a lot, as I said, we don't work in isolation, so a lot of what we do is around building partnerships. So you will see public health sitting at a number of various tables around the community. So myself, I'm involved in Lunenburg County Community Alcohol Partnership. We also have staff that are supporting health promoting schools and various numbers of committees in the community. Healthy public policy, you'll hear us talk a lot about healthy public policy because it's one of the ways that there's a lot of evidence to support that healthy policy will see a broader shift in improvements of health in our communities. So some of the things that we've been involved in the past is around supporting municipal units and our school systems around healthy eating policies. So within the school system and also in our recreation settings. Of course, recently we've been heavily involved in cannabis legalization, and we're also looking at things like policies around marketing to children and youth in the community. And finally, health equity. I already spoke a little bit about health equity. So basically, this is a lens with which we use to our work. So anytime that we are working in our partnerships, helping to develop healthy public policy, health equity, and using that equity lens around specific populations, that's sort of the lens with which we use. I know I'm going a little over time, so I just wanted to say that I've gone through some of the minutes of the town of Bridgewater, myself being part of various committees and organizations. I've been able to pull a few key examples of how the town of Bridgewater has already showed strong commitment to healthy communities. One being your ongoing commitment to engage community in dialogue around how to develop, implement, design things like the programs and services that you offer. A good example is the Better Block event that was just happened. So how do we get public input into how we redesign our community so that it's supportive for them, for healthy, vibrant communities. One of the other examples I wanted to show is health equity. Obviously, you're demonstrating strong leadership around the Smart Cities Challenge and energy poverty, so it's a great example of how the town of Bridgewater has said we have this issue around poverty. We have it, we want to look at clean energy, how can we marry the two and address and bring some of our population out of energy poverty. So it's a great example of how you've taken an issue and really looking at it from my perspective from a health equity lens, and that's the language we would use. So just finally, sorry, I'm running over your time. I highlighted here in the last slide a couple examples of how we may be able to work together in the future. I see myself as a resource to you, so I'm not here tonight to ask you for anything other than, we're here, we're a resource, we're available to be engaged in anything that you're working on, and if you're doing community consultation and engagement and you need an extra set of eyes on that or facilitators, we're here to support that type of work. And in terms of partnerships, we'd hope that you'd look at us as a key partner in any of the work that you're moving forward. And finally, we will probably be back to talk to you again in the future around a concept that we're exploring at Public Health, which is healthy school zones. So just to tease you a little bit, we are looking at the physical, social, economic environment around our schools within our county along the South Shore, and just exploring what that might mean around what we would want to see in a geographical boundary around our schools. So health promoting things, town of Bridgewater is a great example. You have bike lanes near the junior high, elementary school, so that's something we would want to see located in healthy school zones. And then some of the things that we may want to limit, so fast food outlets. You don't really want McDonald's perhaps right across the street from a junior high. So we're just starting to explore that concept and what it might mean for our various municipal units in our school system. So more to come on that.
Great.
So that's, I don't think I've talked that fast before. Sorry.
No, that was good. That we was thinking. Any questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Tanner.
So later tonight, we're talking about crosswalk safety
Yeah.
at the school, which has become a bit of an issue with the schools all coming in at the same time now. So how might you help us with that, or?
So that's obviously from an injury prevention. That's a great example of from an injury prevention type lens. So for us, it would be around exploring what some of the best practices are. So what do we know about planning around our schools, programs and initiatives. So we've done, I know Bridgewater has been involved in the past around active and safe routes to school. So how does that play in? So I think we would want to be part of that dialogue because, again, it's around creating safe environments around that, around the school system. And yeah, I know there's been a lot of issues. So we would want to be part of the conversation, and that would be built in. I strongly believe injury prevention has to be part of that dialogue.
Okay. And you also mentioned the LCLC in the slide as
Yep.
well. So how would you see a partnership with your team with regard to the LCLC?
So, for example, you know, we're interested in having dialogue around any sort of health promoting policies. So, you know, our municipal units have healthy eating and recreation settings. So is there a way we can support and enhance those? Looking at things like alcohol policies around, so when and where and how is alcohol being served. I know there's been a lot of community dialogue recently about smoke-free places and cannabis use, cannabis and smoking use outside of the LCLC. So having some dialogue around what can we be doing to improve those environments.
Okay.
So I think there are lots of opportunities, and from a public health perspective, we want to be part of the conversation so that we can find out from our communities, from our decision makers, from the operators, for example, of the LCLC, where are we and what can we do to improve those environments.
Okay.
Other questions? No.
Just one.
Councillor Thorburn.
I see under equity there, low-income earners.
Yep.
At the branch 24, we've, for the last number of years, been doing income tax for people with low incomes.
Yep.
That may help you out.
Yep.
Next year, we have 8 to 10 people that volunteer their time, no charge. Just come to the branch when it's open and pick a number, and when your name is called, you win. And it's filed electronically, so they're there to assist you, and there's absolutely no charge.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's something to partner with the branch.
Yep. Great idea.
Good. Thank you. Our next item, or actually before we go, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on any items? No, hearing none. We have the minutes of October 8th, regular council meeting. Any errors, omissions? Hearing none, we will deem those as approved. And we'll go down to planning items. We have the second and final consideration, public hearing for land use bylaw amendments. This is for the outdoor furnaces.
So it is a public hearing, so
Yes, hang on, let me get
if
my
you wanna,
public hearing cheat sheet policy out. Okay, so, I get to play chairperson, and we have on the agenda the public hearing for the outdoor furnaces. And, general rules of conduct. Members of council may question each speaker. Speakers will be limited to one presentation. However, council may call upon a speaker for additional comments. Presentation is limited to 10 minutes each. Each speaker will state their name and address. You could probably not have to do that. We don't need to know the director of planning's address. Right? Questions from the floor will be directed to council and not to staff or other individuals in the presentation by a developer. If there is one, it's limited to 20 minutes. Statutory requirements, application date, all that's been done and taken care of. So now we'll go down to the overview by the planner.
thank you very much, Mayor and Council. This is a set of housekeeping amendments, so there is no developer or applicant of this. I guess that is us, the town. In the current land use bylaw, the only requirement around outdoor furnace is that it shall be located a minimum of 30 meters or 100 feet away from any property line on the lot on which it is located. And these are some amendments to add additional requirements that if an outdoor furnace is to be installed, to use a certified model, so that's certified by the Canadian Standards Association or the U.S. Environmental Protection Association standards, that there needs to be a minimum height of the chimney to help move the smoke up and away from any adjacent neighbors, and that the only fuel that may be used in such an appliance would be clean, dry wood or biomass. So they're just sort of putting a few more parameters around to increase the energy efficiency and decrease any kind of output from the outdoor furnaces.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Thorburn.
Just one, we only have one, don't we, in the town?
So far, there is only
Only
one
yeah.
permitted in the
And
town.
I know where that one is.
Okay.
I
great.
walk by it every morning.
Any other questions?
So this is going forward.
Right.
Anyone who
Yeah.
applies to have an outdoor
Just tightens it up a
furnace
little bit.
Yeah.
has to make sure that it's certified, which meets certain emission standards and et cetera. So,
Councillor Graves.
And you feel that the minimum height for the chimney at 4.5 meters is good enough for a river valley? Is high enough?
based on the research that we did.
Okay, good.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this topic? No? Any other questions from council? Is someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Thorburn?
I will move that town council for the town of Bridgewater give second and final consideration to the proposed text amendments of the land use bylaws regarding outdoor furnaces as contained in Appendix A of document 18-131A.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor McDonald, further discussion? Hearing none, questions being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Our next item is application for development agreement for JSTR Investments Limited at 25 Dominion Street, which is at the corner of Dominion and Pleasant. And turn it back over to our Director of Planning.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. This is a preliminary report. So we received an application from JSTR Investments. They currently own and operate a 6-unit apartment building at the corner of Dominion and Pleasant. And they would like to take one of those units and turn it into 2 units. So there's no additions or changes to the external envelope of the building. So currently, the property is a legal non-conforming use, so it was allowed to be, it was permitted as a 6-unit building, but it is now a restricted commercial zoning on it, which allows multi-unit buildings up to a certain density based on the size of the lot. So based on the size of this lot, it would permit 8 units by development agreement, but not as of right, which is why it's legal non-conforming. It was allowed and permitted legally to exist before the zoning changed. So in order to increase from 6 units to 7, they require a development agreement, but that would also bring this property into conformance with the land use bylaw. So it would no longer be non-conforming. So this is just to request a referral to staff to go through the process of developing a DA.
Any questions to the Director of Planning? Pretty straightforward. It'll come back. Yes,
So
Councillor Graves?
Are we taking one unit and making it into 2? Does that reduce the opportunities for lower income families to have access to housing?
No, I don't know off the top of my head the exact unit mix,
Yeah.
but this is, it does remove a 3-bedroom unit. So yes, that would remove a unit out of the market for a larger family.
So that's something we should be concerned about for the town in terms of finding accommodation for.
At this point, this is a preliminary application, so I don't have it in the context of all the other housing within the area. But I think on a single unit, I think as an overall trend, we would probably have some concerns around that. But in this single building with this single unit, then at this point, we want to explore what that option looks like.
Any other questions? Hearing none, someone prepared to make a motion, please? Councillor Fagier?
Yes, Your Worship. That Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater refer the matter to staff to follow the development agreement application process required by policy IM-7 of the municipal planning strategy. including undertaking a public participation meeting on Tuesday, November sixth, 2018, at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Tanner, any further discussion?
May I make a request regarding the motion that we include the civic address that was missed?
Yes. Of 25 Dominion Street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll just
Okay.
put that in there.
Add 25 Dominion Street.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Tanner is okay with that. Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Our next item is a piece of correspondence for information from the Greenwood Military Family Resource Center. And this is regarding the Adopt Our Troops for Christmas campaign. So it is just information for the general public, but what I'll do is I'll throw out the email address for Dan Hennessy, since it's in this letter, for anyone who's watching. We're streaming this live on Facebook, and obviously it'll be on Eastlink and YouTube. So if you're interested in your business or your family adopting troops for Christmas and sending them packages and things like that, I would recommend contacting Honorable Colonel Dan Hennessy, and his email address is mdhennessy, HENNESSEY, at outlook.com. Worthy cause. We, of course, are very supportive of our men and women in military in uniform here. And I was just speaking with Councillor Thorburn today about the committee that he serves on, which is with our air flight engineers, and of course, his involvement in the Legion. And so any families or businesses willing to take part in this campaign should reach out to Mr. Hennessy. So that's in your package for information. Next item is correspondence for action, the Home Support Group. We had a letter, an email from Councillor Graves. It was brought to his attention about parking on Pleasant for home support groups. Perhaps if you just want to elaborate a little bit for the public.
So the home support group, or a group of social workers that take care of people with behavioral, intellectual, or physical challenges. They have two buildings on Pleasant Street, 66 and 72 Pleasant Street. And the town has generously given them access to 20 parking passes and 2 parking spaces where they can park free of charge. The problem is that at times, there may be more than 2 social workers on site at the same time. And they would take care of a variety of issues throughout the day and as far as I know, into the evening. All they're asking is that if they're parking on King Street with the special identified tag, that they don't pay for parking. Sometimes they may just be going in for 10 minutes to check on something, pick someone up. But many a time, there's quite frequently apparently, they'll find that both spots are taken and they have to park further down the street or further up the street. You can imagine if someone's got an intellectual or a physical difficulty, not only do they have to walk, not only does the social worker have to walk, so do those people as well. So the request is if there is space on Pleasant Street, that they just have the ability to put their tag up and park free of charge.
Okay, so the motion is in the package to refer that to the traffic authority, but are there any questions, or the traffic authority happens to be here? Deputy Mayor Tanner?
Michael, you may have slipped, but you said King Street as well.
No,
You-
no,
you
no, I didn't
just
say that.
Pleasant, you
Just
did,
Pleasant,
but,
I'm
or
sorry.
I misheard, but I
Yeah,
just
no.
want to make sure, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, just Pleasant Street.
And just for
Yeah.
a question for Larry, there are other, couple more spots further up, correct, on Pleasant, up here on the right?
Correct. To
Yeah.
the south, there's another home support group that has 2 spaces as well,
Okay.
dedicated for their use.
And are they interchangeable, so to speak?
Not currently. The permits do distinguish between the 2 groups.
Okay, thanks.
The building that we're talking about has parking, does it not have underground parking?
Yes, it does.
And is it not accessible to anyone that's offering home support? I wonder if we reached out to the building manager to see if,
I'm unaware whether they use those spaces or not. I am aware there was a bit of a parking study at the time that the development agreement was put in place, and I believe there are requirements within the development agreement around parking that may be related to this issue.
Because that would be what I would be curious to know is, I mean, it would be in the best, it's in the best interest of the tenants, it's in the best interest of home support if they can, if they've underutilized parking inside the underground parking, which I remember when that building was being developed. I remember the developer saying that because it's targeting lower income families or people, they mostly don't have vehicles. So in my head, I'm picturing that that underground parking is not necessarily full, and that might solve some of the issue if they can have access to the spaces, some spaces outside, but spaces inside. So in your, assuming council will make the recommendation to refer it to the traffic authority, would it be possible to reach out to the building manager or building owner to see if there's spaces, and we could solve that, it could solve itself quite quickly, I would think.
Yes, staff can do that.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Tanner.
Well, I don't know if you, could we also then talk to the other home support group and see if they're under a
It's the
constraint as
same
well?
group, Same people.
But they're not interchangeable though, as I understand it. So is it? why
My
would that be?
understanding, it may be under the same umbrella, but the permits are specific with two different names of workers. So I believe it's Lunenburg County
Home support.
Home Support, and I'm unaware specifically what this one says on the permits. Our department doesn't issue the permit per se, but the wording I believe is different.
Because that might be another option to just issue parking permits that
More
say home
generalized.
support.
Yeah.
More generalized so that it's less restricted.
Interchangeable.
Yeah. Councillor Thorburn.
Yeah, I'm getting concerned that we know of 2 locations on this same street. How many more locations do we have in town? We have to be very careful what we do, that we do the right thing up front, rather than find us making decisions later on. So I think a little bit of research should be done. It may be more than just the 2 locations, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Further questions? Someone prepared to put a motion on the floor, please?
Yes, Your Worship, I move the Town Council of the Town of Bridgewater refer the request from the Home Support Group regarding parking on Pleasant Street to the town's traffic authority to report and recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is under reports and recommendations. We have the building inspection report for September 2018 there for your review. The town is in phenomenal shape. The numbers keep going up, and I mean, we continue to be on an upward trend. So you know, just really, it's a good news story. I don't know what else to say about it. Any questions to Mr. Feener? All right, for the public, we're $2 million, year to date, we're $2 million more of permits being issued than last year, which was also a good year. So year to date at $13,862,857 is the value of construction year to date. So big thank you to those people developing in our town. Next item is Bridgewater Junior High School crosswalks, as Deputy Mayor Tanner mentioned earlier, and I believe we mentioned at the last council meeting. We do have a bit of a concern with the crosswalks in front of the 2 schools on York. The issue, of course, is when the bell times aligned, which is, makes sense when you have people coming and going. It created a different issue, which is it is very difficult to hire crossing guards for what is essentially an hour a day, 5 days a week. And so by having that problem, we've created another problem, which is that we have some concerns from parents and teachers, and I know members of council. And so we're trying to find a solution, and so I'm looking for a motion here from council so that we can kind of get the ball rolling and work through that as quickly as possible. Deputy Mayor Tanner.
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater direct staff to monitor the recent change in the location of the crossing guard from the intersection of York Dominion to the mid-block crosswalk at the junior high school, educate and promote proper crosswalk usage, including the responsibilities of pedestrians, and implemented the recommended changes in signage and pavement markings identified by staff during the recent crosswalk review program.
Right. you. Seconder, Councilor McDonald, discussion?
Question?
Lately, and I'm not sure if it's a normalized thing, but there seems to be 3 crossing guards there now on a more regular basis. Does anybody know if that's true?
I only noticed the one that's now mid-block, but
So what I'm seeing, I guess, is one across from the elementary school, one across from the junior high, and then another at the corner of York and Dominion. So
Yeah, I seen one
that's what
here.
I've experienced over the last, like, 2 weeks maybe, or week and a half. I don't know if that's.
so I wonder if it's a parent or a teacher just putting on a vest and helping. Be interesting to find out.
No idea. They're different people. They're 3 different people. But, yeah, I'm not losing my mind completely, am I? No.
I didn't see anyone jump in the back yet. No. Yeah, so maybe we'll find that out, because it would be interesting to see if it is volunteers and it's working. Is that part of the solution? Is it helping? So, motion has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Next item under new business is appointments to committees and commissions and boards. Normally, our committees go to the end of October, and then we reappoint for 2 years. In your motion package is a recommendation to, how come my motion isn't going there? Anyway, there's a motion, I'd like a motion to extend the appointments that are currently on the books to the next regular scheduled council meeting. We just need a little bit more time. The reality is that we are on committees that we shouldn't be on. We are on way too many committees. When I went through the list today, which took hours, and looked at the committees that were not legislated to be on, or they've met once, or they just don't serve the public need in our community. I had one particular counselor who was on 7 committees that when I redid the list, they did not need to be on. And that counselor is still going to be on 7 committees. So that was 14 committees, half of which I'm looking at just saying, it's not a municipal issue, never met, meets once a year, things like that. So I didn't have it done for today, so it will be done. I'm going to email that out to council for your review. It has lightened the load for everybody. And I think just as important, when you look at trying to get people to run in the next municipal election, especially younger people who may not be retired, to say you get to come to council, which is Mondays, which is great, and then you're going to have to serve on 14 other committees that might meet during the day, that might meet at night. It's not very enticing. And so I'm hoping this way it will be a little bit more open to those of any age and any demographic. So I think you'll be pleased, and it probably aligns with where we should have been a while ago. So if I can have someone just move that we'll extend these appointments till the November 13th.
So moved.
Councillor Thorburn, seconded by Councillor Graves. Any further discussion or questions? And thank you, each of you gave me their feedback on what you'd like to see changed, and I think you'll be pleased. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Our last order of business is election of deputy mayor. We must be halfway through this term. So before you is your nomination ballot. It's the green one. Please choose one person. And then if you wish, you can put nobody if you don't wish. And then Sandra will come around and collect them.
Could I please have my name omitted from the list?
Stricken from the record.
No one wanted to.
Yes. So please do not nominate Councillor McGuinness, as per his wishes. So just the green paper, please. I feel like we should have some music. Mr. McClellan, did you want to whistle? Can you whistle us too?
Good time for closing.
This is, yes, if you want to, it'd be a great time for your closing remarks. You can, the microphone can move, you can stand and you can, I think we'll stick with closing remarks.
Well, I might want it.
Palm is in the gallery, just shaking his head. Yes, thank you. We should have done announcements while we were waiting for them to scrutineer.
Something exciting you could say?
Well, I was just gonna say to Councilor Thorburn, I've seen the Remembrance Day banners are up. And they look good.
It's a great program, and it helps pay for Veterans Week for the community.
And it's
Very
gonna,
much appreciated
it's
by
gonna be
the-
warm and sunny on the 11th. Good.
We want it.
There's no vote required, there's only been one nominee.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I assume congratulations. All right. There is no other business today. We have a in-camera meeting to discuss a personnel matter. And no other business. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Councilor Thorburn, Mayor Tanner, we are adjourned. Thank you.